He is the modern day Don Nealon.
But Don Nealon's Mountaineers enjoy walking in where angels fear to tread.
He's bought into the program.
As the hills of West Virginia resound with the sounds of Golden Blue football.
It is a great night to be a Mountaineer wherever you may be.
Let them know. Leave no doubt tonight. Leave no doubt tonight. No doubt. They shouldn't have played the old Golden Blue.
I was watching ESPN today, and they showed a little thing about our game tonight in a poll, and the whole U.S. was covered in red, and the only state, the greatest state in the nation, was covered in blue, and that was West Virginia, and that's why we won this game.
Trust the climb.
What's going on, Mountaineer Nation? Welcome into another edition of the Country Roads webcast, a live stream fall camp recaps we've been doing here. Week 2 of fall camp ongoing. Scrimmage was today. They're playing on a Thursday against Pitt, so they're going to be scrimmaging on Thursdays as well. Today was the very first one. Figured we'd come in and talk about that a little bit. Got Steven in here with me. How's it going, Steven?
Pretty good, man. Pretty good. I was able to get a little bit of highlights from that scrimmage earlier, but not a whole lot. A little teaser, if you will.
I hear that. I listened to Neil Brown's thing a couple times or whatever, so we can talk about it, what we thought stood out a little bit, and what you didn't see. I can try and fill you in on, and hopefully some of the viewers haven't seen either, and we can fill them on it as well and talk about it along the way. Any WVU football questions y'all have, pop them in the chat. We're live on YouTube, Facebook, and our Twitch. Going to try and do this through fall camp leading up to the season. Monday, August 15th, I'm sure you've probably seen our promo on our social medias released. Season Prediction Roundtable coming out. That's the next episode of the CRW podcast. But we've been wanting to do some exclusive stuff for the video side here on YouTube. And this is one of those things. So please like the video if you're here. That helps the video performance, help our future videos performances as well. And hit the subscribe button if you haven't already. Helps us, helps you, helps get more of this Mountaineer football content out to Mountaineer Nation. And beside the subscribe button, if you hit the little bell there, the notification bell, it'll notify you when we go live, because we'll be doing some more of these live streams, not only through fall camp, but our reaction shows are also streamed live here on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitch. But that being said, Stephen, of what you did catch, what did you think really stood out from Neil Brown's comments following the scrimmage today, and made you think what of the scrimmage?
Well, that's the kind of the funny thing, because I was able to catch the press conference first before I seen any of the highlights. But, the way that Neil Brown talked, he said he didn't want to talk about the quarterbacks until he's seen anything on, seen at least a little bit of film. Said that the wide receivers, they were okay, but they need to be better than okay if we're going to be where we want to be. But that's the funny thing about it. The highlights that I seen were some pretty great catches today. I don't know if that one by Cortez Bram that I seen was today, but it was posted today. I think that one might have been yesterday from just the view. They had the mitts on yesterday.
Oh, yeah, I did see that one. I think it was.
And that was a great snag. That was a great ball. I think that was Garrett Green that threw that ball up, and I
think that was Green on that one.
That was a beautiful spin on that ball. Other than that, Reese Smith had a pretty good snag that I seen today. I'm trying to remember some of the other highlights. There was only 3 highlights that I seen posted, but from what Neil Brown's comments, I think we're still early in camp. I think we still need to find out a little bit of our identity on a couple things moving forward. But that's the negative from his confidence. The positive, I guess, would be how he spoke about the offensive line and how they're able to a lot of those guys are able to shift change a little bit into different roles if need be. And I think that's going to be only a positive for West Virginia, and and probably a lot of the scenarios that they're going to be put up against, especially early in this season against some of these defensive fronts.
Yeah, that's one thing I've been thinking is the first game of the season they may be facing the best defensive line they'll face all season. Really, that Pitt defensive line is going to be very good. That Pitt defense is going to be very stout. So they're going to need to be ready for that. And in terms of being ready for that, what stood out the most to me from Neil Brown's comments, other than some of the things you said about, not really talking about the quarterbacks, you can say maybe he dodged that a little bit or what have you. But the thing that really stood out to me was him talking about last season. They played a rival on the road to begin last season as well. Didn't perform well, he thought at all. Ended up losing that game, 4 turnovers, a lot of other mistakes. And he didn't think the defense performed well, he said, in that game. So he said one of the things they did this offseason is they've studied teams that were successful in early season games, especially in Power 5 versus Power 5 matchups, what they did through offseason and what they did in fall camp. And he said they did pretty much a 180 on how they run fall camp this year to try and make sure that this year turns out differently and they can get a win over Pitt. What did you think about that? Did you get to hear that? And, what are your thoughts on that kind of way that they're attacking this season's opener in a rivalry game, handling fall camp a little bit differently now?
I love that aspect because I think, a lot of us last year thought that was the approach that they were taking last year with it being a rivalry game. Of course, a lot of us, West Virginia, Maryland is a rivalry game. But if you're a West Virginia fan, I think you're naive to think that it's at least on the same level as West Virginia Pitt or West Virginia Virginia Tech. You know what I mean? So I think that where those guys haven't played in that rivalry a lot last year, I think that maybe they downplayed it as a rivalry to some degree. This year, there's no way that you can possibly do that with the amount of hype that's surrounding this game already. So I love the fact that they've taken that approach this year, and I think that to beat a team that's gonna be as good as Pitt is, and to come into a rivalry game like that with the fans all jacked up and everything, you have to take that approach.
Yeah, I agree 100%. That's one of the things. I think that's why it stuck out to me, is because it really got me kind of a little bit more excited even for the season if that can happen. I feel like it's already at a fever pitch for me, but definitely got me excited more so even there with that, I do believe. But the other thing about the offense that he said that stuck out to me, yet again, we get another drop of the name C.J. Donaldson and his performance at running back. He said, as far as running backs, Tony Mathis, of course, is, the solidified, starter number 1 back. But he said he thought Jalen Anderson and C.J. Donaldson really took a big step today. Justin Johnson, he said, didn't really play today, didn't really elaborate on why. I don't know if it's sickness or something minor, but sure he's fine. But he said, he didn't really get a lot of work today, or if they just was trying to work those 2 guys specifically, maybe. I don't know, but he did mention C.J. Donaldson. So we got to talk about him again. What are your thoughts on C.J. Donaldson? 6'2", 240-pounder guy, came in as an athlete last year, got speed, but, they thought he was going to be a tight end, but they want to get him on the field, just get the ball into his hands. So he's playing running back for now, but they feel like, he can play running back, receiver, tight end in the future. Neil Brown said he doesn't know if he's going to come out and contribute game 1, but he definitely says he feels like he's a guy that can really boost their offense this season. That was I think his exact quote is something along those lines, that he feels like C.J. Donaldson can boost the offense. So what are your thoughts on him and his potential? And do you think this is coach speak, or do you think we're really going to see a lot of C.J. Donaldson, and how much against Pitt would you think?
At first, a little bit of it I thought was coach speak, but the more we get into it, the more coaches that you hear come to the podium every day, that's the name that they keep continuously talking about, is C.J. Donaldson. And I think if you're a West Virginia fan, you can't help but be excited about that name from everything they've been talking about, because if he's already playing running back, and being thrown into the fire, and in that way, then if he's going to play receiver or if he's going to play tight end, down the road in a few years, I think that can only help him because it can only help his athleticism and help his speed. But I don't know. It's kind of a weird thing for someone to be recruited to play tight end and then make the switch to a running back. The two, just thinking about the way the body types match up,
Well, when's the last time West
wild...
Virginia had a 240-pound running back? I can't think of. I mean, the bigger running backs I can think of in recent history, I mean, Sean Alston, he was about 220. Ryan Clark, I think he was maybe 220, maybe 230. He might have been 230, but 240.
Yeah, but both of those guys.
Big. And he's only a true freshman, so.
Both of those guys, I mean, running backs, yeah, but they're fullbacks. They weren't even.
Yeah, I mean, more so, right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
So,
I don't know.
I don't know how big was.
But if he's athletic enough,
Schmidt?
they feel like they can slide him out too. That he's gonna be used all over the field. So I feel like the potential is there. But to me, it's just how quick does it click to where we can see him in games, and is he going to contribute this season? Because if he's really going to boost the offense, and if you get a healthy JT Daniels, Graham Harrell, and you can get him in, get him quick enough acclimated to college football as a true freshman to play right away, then that's going to be awesome, especially for the future for him. He could really have an awesome career.
Oh, yeah. I think, well, I mean, I'm big on guys playing early just because I think that the sooner you're thrown into the fire, so to speak, I think that the sooner that you're going to be able to get up to game speed in Division I football, and that's for any type of player. And, I know you're gonna face your woes and everything as playing as a freshman and a newer player in a new system, just in general. But I don't know. I really think that the younger a player plays, the faster that they become the player that they're going to be or have the potential to be.
Right. Getting that experience is big. It's really big.
Yeah. To me, I think experience is the most important thing.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd agree 100%. Especially, I think now you can't really afford to redshirt guys with the transfer portal is and the way guys can just up and leave so quick. If you got a guy that you feel like can help you, you got to play him as quick as possible. Not throw him, but there's a fine line. You don't want to throw him in too early either. So got to, be careful about that. But in chat here, we got slide or die, Derrick Henry type running back. Yeah, I mean, it sounds like it. I don't know what his speed is like. They haven't really spoken too much about that. But, I mean, if he's athletic enough, they feel like he can play receiver too. You got to think he's pretty quick for that size as well. Matthew Anderson commenting on the Facebook side, live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch, Country Roads webcast, fall camp week 2 scrimmage recap, and we're going to take any Q&A you guys want to drop. So whether you're on Facebook, Twitch, YouTube, we appreciate you tuning in. Be sure, and if you want to hop in the chat, go ahead. Don't be shy. Drop any WV football questions, comments, concerns. We'll address them all here. Stay on with you as long as you'd like. As long as you guys keep it going, we'll stay here. Who knows? We'll keep it going. But Matthew Anderson on the Facebook side, let's go Mountaineers. Absolutely. Appreciate you tuning in, Matthew. Let's go Mountaineers indeed. 21 days from the season now, and it can't get here soon enough, right, Stephen?
3 weeks to the day. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Chomping at the bit, man. I've been watching. I've been
me
scrambling
and you
around.
will be sitting in Acrisure Stadium about this time in 3 weeks.
Absolutely, man. Yelling about exactly this time.
Hopefully WVU's up by about 2 scores by now.
Yeah, I'm hoping so. But from all these games I've been scrambling around and watching from the past few decades, I don't know if that'll be the case. It's always been some pretty close games.
Yeah, it really has. For the most, I mean, there's been a blowout occasionally, but for the most part, it's always neck and neck. I think I forgot what I was going to say. Just mine completely went blank. It's something about the backyard brawl. But what I was just going to say is, it's like, it seems like to me, I don't know if you're feeling the same way, is that the closer we get to the game, the more nervous I get about the game, the more I start hearing, previews, and I see people from the pit side, because that's where you really got to, I think, dive into as well. Is if you're watching, previews, you got to look at the pit previews as well, because they're going to give you, an in-depth look, kind of like we try to do here, and all the other great WVU podcasts and websites do as well. But the more of those I watch, the more I'm like, man, Pitt, they did lose Addison, they did lose Kenny Pickett, but their defense is still loaded. They bring back a ton, and they also bring back a lot of skill players on offense despite losing Addison. They brought in a good transfer receiver, so I definitely don't think it's going to be a runaway for West Virginia by any means. And the closer that we get, the more nervous I get, because this is going to be a top 25 Pitt team in their place, and they're going to be good.
Yeah, they're definitely going to be good, and I think West Virginia is going to have their hands full, but You know, as much as I keep looking at all of that, I keep thinking about how good West Virginia has gotten. You know, you think about the pieces of that Pitt has lost. West Virginia, you know, we've added pieces instead of. I would argue that we've added more important pieces than we've lost in the past year. And you can't say the same thing for Pitt, in my opinion. And I'm not saying that goes entirely into what the game is going to be and how it plays out, but just thinking about the general hype of the game, I really think that West Virginia is going to be a vastly improved football team this year. And to start off with a game like that, I think that a lot of teams, you know, they don't play their best football in week one, but some of their most emotional games sometimes come in week one, and I think that's going to play a huge part for this game, especially. You know, because people can say what they want about a lot of players not knowing about this rivalry and playing in it, but there's plenty of teams on West Virginia side. I'm sure Pitt side, I don't really pay attention to anything about their football program when it comes to like in-depth analysis, but
Right.
you know, I know a lot of West Virginia players, you know, are legacy players, and their families have played in the backyard brawl, or they at least know someone that's played in the backyard brawl. So it's at least a little bit personal to them. It's not such an old rivalry that no one knows about it. And so, you know, Virginia Tech was a little bit less like that. We played in 2017, but you know, dating all the way back to 2005, you know, that's a little bit longer than 2011.
Yeah,
I
that's
think
true.
Pitt,
Well,
West Virginia is a
and
little
the
bit more
thing is, at
fresh.
least, at least the backyard brawl, like we're going to play again, you know, get him in Morgantown next year. And then when 2029 or whenever it is, it kicks in, you know, for about 3 or 4 more years. Not the backyard brawl, but the battle for the Black Diamond. We need to win that this year because whoever wins that's going to hold on to it for that, like at least, you know, probably 6,000 days, like last time when, you know, Tech won it in 2017 and had it about that long until we took it back this past season. So hopefully we can beat them again and hang on to it because that's going to be, you know, a long time before that one gets played again. Who knows?
Yeah, absolutely. Which I'm hoping that Shane Lyons in the athletic department, you know, recognize what those rivalries have done for the fan base, emotionally and just in terms of us feeling like we're back in the way that we were, I guess, in terms of rivalries, because there for a long time. I mean, we went how many seasons without playing one? I mean, we had to pretty much act like some of these other teams are our rivalry, which we've had rivalry-like series with some of these teams like Baylor and Texas, and you know, those have been some fun games to watch. But you know, I'd be remiss if I didn't say that I miss those rivalries, and I think that's the reason that everybody wants to join the ACC. I don't think that that's the best fit, but I do think that would be the one huge positive, obviously, would be to gain all those rivalries back. So hopefully Shane Lyons in the athletic department sees that, you know, we need a rivalry like Virginia Tech, because they've obviously seen that with the backyard brawl. They've scheduled that for I forget how many years exactly it is, but it's a few. Hopefully, I really hope to see something like that with Virginia Tech, and maybe hopefully with Penn State eventually too, because that I feel like.
Well, they got Penn State. The next two or three years.
Well, right.
Next year we play Pitt and Penn State, but then I don't know if
I'm
how
talking
long
in
that
terms of
continues,
longevity.
That would be great. I mean, I think it'd be great if, you know, if we had 3 non-conference games, if they were like Pitt, Penn State, and VT, I'd be fine with that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think those would be a really good. Or if you could interchange.
I mean, that's a super tough schedule. So maybe like you interchange them and play 2 in the FCS. But yeah.
Yeah, or if you could interchange them and play this is just examples surely, but for example, Pitt, Maryland, and Virginia Tech one year, and then Penn State, Syracuse, and I don't know, Rutgers one year. You know, I'm just thinking off the top of the head from some of the old Big East teams, but
some more.
Yeah, I miss playing Rutgers. Those were some battles, man.
They were
3 overtime games.
Triple overtime. Jarrett Brown played quarterback that game. Yeah, that was a fun one.
I watched that one the other night, actually.
I need to watch that. I'm going to watch that 94 backyard brawl. I know you watched it, and I started it last night, but I was too tired. I'll probably try and get into it tonight a little bit.
If anybody y'all watching right now, go watch the '94 West Virginia Pitt game. You will not regret it. It's
One of the
I
best
don't
brawls ever.
understand. Hands down, I don't understand how it's not talked about more. To be honest with you, because I've never seen more turnovers, more lead changes, more one team thinking they're definitely going to win to the next team thinking, oh, wait, though, well, now we're going to win. I mean, it was back and forth the whole freaking time, man. It was awesome. It was such a good game.
Yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited to watch that one. I haven't watched, one back from the 90s. I watched like 04 to 2011, to the last one, 2011. So I'm going to go back and watch some of the older ones now. To myself, getting back to the scrimmage a little bit, offensive line wise, James Gamitter out with a minor injury. He said, he'll be back in just a couple of days. With him out, get a little bit more of Jordan White. But one of the questions that was asked to Neil Brown was if they were experimenting moving on the line a little bit between guard and tackle. And he said, they have been doing that a little bit. And so that my question to you, Stephen, is what would you think about an offensive line? Because I've heard that they have done this some at practice. Doug Nestor sliding out from right guard to right tackle and sliding Jordan White in at right guard instead of, Brandon Yates and Jaquay Hubbard, who were battling at that right tackle spot. Because to me, if Jordan White you feel like is one of your 5 best linemen, get him in there, slide Nestor out to tackle. He played some tackle when he was at Virginia Tech, so he could do it. But I don't know how you feel about that. What you think would be the stronger unit is if they keep it, with either Yates or Hubbard, or if they try some different combinations. What are your thoughts on the offensive line? And because that's, the key position, especially in that first game, I feel like.
Oh, absolutely. And that's kind of where I'm on the fence about it, because I'm not really sure if I could say which one that I think would be stronger than the other. And that's kind of problematic with what my answer would be. If
Right.
you weren't playing such a strenuous schedule in the beginning and you just had KU and Towson for the first 2, for example, then it would be a lot easier for you to go in there and test out this line, and the next game test out this schematic in the line. But I don't. To me, I feel like the battle between Brandon Yates and Jaquay Hubbard is a good one. Like I said in the almost gave away some stuff that I shouldn't have given away.
Spoilers, but I mean, you can say that we do, position battle predictions is, one of the superlatives and stuff in the season prediction roundtable show. And, one of them is, of course, the battle of right tackle. So, I mean, we can say that at least.
Okay, well, I'll give away that little bit of tidbit of information. But, well, like I said, Brandon Yates and Jaquay Hubbard are both good athletes. I don't feel like either one would be a bad pick. But as far as the best overall scenario, I don't know. I think that it might bode well for West Virginia to just go with the experience on who your best overall players are. And if Doug Nestor has, experience at playing at the right guard or right tackle, he's already right guard.
Right tackle, yeah.
I get so confused on the line.
Yeah, because he's right. He's played right guard exclusively for us, but he played some tackle
Right.
at Virginia Tech. They said.
Right. For him to move to right tackle and then put Jordan White over at the guard, I don't think that would be a bad move either, because then you're going with experience and then you're going with your best overall line. And I think that if you're going against what may be the best defensive line that you're probably going to face all season, but if not, that might be the best defensive line in all of college football this season.
Oh yeah.
You go with what your best overall percentage of a chance is, and I think that would be going with what the best overall group of players is, which would be moving Doug Nestor over and putting Jordan White at that guard position.
Yeah, I definitely don't think it'd be a bad move. I'd like to see it, especially because I think going against Pitt, the one thing that you do have at your disposal kind of is the element of surprise, I feel like a little bit, because Keaton Slovis went to USC. He probably knows a few things about, Graham's offense that he could fill the Pitt, defensive coordinators and, staff on. But in turn, West Virginia knows that. So I think that they're going to come up with some different wrinkles, maybe know some things Pitt expects them to do offensively and completely do some totally different things away from that. And so, having an offensive lineup that you haven't played yet could be one of those things for sure, I feel like. So we'll have to see what develops with that along the offensive line. Should start to see, a 2 deep, a depth chart here before too long, especially, next week when they get into a second scrimmage. That's when it really starts getting narrowed down. Catching up in chat here for a second. WVU fan 23, good to see you here again. Always appreciate you chiming in here, and appreciate anyone dropping questions in the chat here, a little Q&A going as well alongside of the scrimmage recap. He says, do you guys feel Neil Brown maybe holding things close to the vest when it comes to which position groups or players will perform well in practices and scrimmages to keep Pitt guessing? I wouldn't be surprised if he did, for sure. That's definitely something I think coaches tend to do, but also Neil Brown seems like a guy that, speaks his mind. Sometimes there's a little coach speaking there, but he speaks his mind. But the one thing I will say, and Stephen, you can answer that question or, respond to this or both in turn, whatever you like. But the one thing I think I will say about this offseason so far, especially in his fall camp press conferences, is last year it seemed like Neil Brown was, trying to get everybody hyped up, saying all these good things, super confident. And in these ones, he seems more melancholy. I don't want to say like he's upset or sad, but I think he expects a lot out of this team, and it almost seems like he's been disappointed in the past couple press conferences, at least.
That's exactly what I was getting ready to say, almost to a T. I think that last year, we were all mad in the beginning of the season, when we played Maryland driving home, I think, because we felt lied to. We felt like Neil Brown had talked all off season long about how, Jared Duggy had the arm of Tom Brady all of a sudden, and, our receivers were catching everything thrown to them. And I mean, just all this, all this stuff that we should have known better than to believe it. But, seeing things through our golden blue eyes and just trusting Neil Brown's opinion, honestly, I think that's what made it seem like it was going to be so much better than it was, I guess. But yeah, comparatively, I thought the same thing, especially watching the press conference today. I thought the exact same thing. I was like, man, he doesn't seem near as excited as I thought he would about some of these guys. So I don't know if it's because he set his expectations so high for this team, that it's a slow progression through camp, or that it's, if he heard those rumblings through the fan base last year, that he wanted to, maybe digress his expectations a little bit on the public side of things, I guess.
Yeah, I think so. I don't know. It seems like a different side of Neil Brown that we haven't really seen up to this point. Coos' Corner in chat. What's going on, Coos? Good to see you in here, man.
What's up, Coos?
Appreciate you. He said it appears that he's starting to feel the pressure that's on him this season. Talking about Neil Brown and how he's appeared in the past couple press conferences. That could definitely be true. I think, the pressure is on. He knows he needs to win this season, 7-8 games, or he will definitely be on the hot seat because some already consider him to be so. What do you think, Stephen? Do you think that could be part of it as well?
Yeah, I mean, I think it could be part of it, but I think that it definitely is at least some part of it that he feels the pressure, and he obviously has to win this season. But I feel like, I don't know, like as I said before, I think that his expectation for this team is to be a great football team. And if we come out here and we're even a mediocre football team, he knows that there's going to be a lot of backlash. And it really depends on what you look like if you have a middle of the road football team this year, I feel like, because if you have the 7-win football team, 8-win football team, 8 wins is really good, but 7 wins, if your offense doesn't look anything better than it did last year, then there's going to be a lot of pissed off people.
Yeah.
And so I feel like maybe that might be a little bit of the pressure because, if anything has to perform better this year, it is our offense. Everybody knows what our defense is. And from the way I hear it, our defense is going to be that good again this year from the way all the coaches talk.
Yeah.
So
could be even better. Who knows? Silas in the chat on YouTube. I appreciate you chiming in. First time I think I've seen you in here, Silas. Hope you come back, and always glad to have people chime in with some questions. Any updates on quarterback play in the scrimmage? Brown wouldn't get into it, he said, without watching the tape. Yeah, I haven't seen or heard anything, unfortunately, either. So I think maybe the best update we'll get on that is his next press conference. I think that's scheduled in the next, few days. I think some players are being made available tomorrow. So maybe they'll drop some tidbits on it if somebody's brave enough to ask the question that's there. We'll see what happens.
I'm sure somebody will be.
I don't know. Yeah, I would say somebody definitely would. They usually are pretty good about that. Stephen, what about you? You heard anything about quarterback play other than what Neil Brown said about having to wait on the tape? And
no, I was hoping that you had. All That's the only thing that I have heard all day,
Unfortunately.
other than some of the few clips that I've seen. But those clips, like I said, they didn't look like badly thrown balls. But you can only get so much out of 3 little small clips of a of a scrimmage.
Yeah, hopefully some stuff comes out in the coming days, but fan day is Saturday, so I know the fans will be able to, watch a little bit of practice after the autograph signing and stuff. So hopefully, people will be dropping tidbits then and we'll hear a little bit about something, from the fans. So who knows? Take that with a grain of salt though. So but I do know the one thing he did say about quarterbacks is they're still splitting up evenly between the 4. He said, the plays, of course, ended up being different, but the drives were all distributed evenly. The plays, of course, different because, some drives go longer depending on the success rate. And, that's kind of what they're looking at and looking for. So no updates really yet, other than what we heard from Neil Brown, Silas, unfortunately. But in the coming days, I'm sure some things will come out. And if anything major comes out, we'll have an update here on the Country Roads webcast, of course. So always tune in, subscribe if you haven't already. We really appreciate you tuning in here. For going on off that note, with quarterbacks, Stephen, we talked about Neil Brown's tone a little bit in his press conference, being disappointed. And one of the areas it seemed like he was disappointed in to me was the guys that the quarterbacks are throwing to, the receivers. He was asked about the receivers, and he said he has high expectations for those guys, but he said, okay, or something along those lines, paraphrasing a little bit. But he did mention Reese Smith as a standout and how he thinks he's going to have a big season. And lo and behold, Reese Smith, quietly one of the faster players on the team. Apparently, he said, the GPS is things they wear to track him, that he's consistently at the top. So that's good to hear. Maybe that could be a secret, big play threat in the slot, West Virginia's own little Hunter Renfro or something. But what are your thoughts on Neil Brown's comments on the receivers? Excuse me.
Yeah, that, like I mentioned earlier, that's the one thing that stood out to me about the entire press conference, to be honest with you, was because it's one of the things I've been most excited about is about the receiving core. And so when he comes out and he's like, well, they just played okay. I think that may be a testament on how well he wants them to perform every single time they're out there, because our receiving core, if anything, in its entirety of what it is right now, I think has been known to be able to play up to a very, very high ceiling, but also be able to play down to a low, low floor and drop a lot of passes and, just be in some bad situations. So, it's just been one extremity on one side to the other. And I think that as good as we can be in the receiving core, I think that he knows that we have to be an elite group day in and day out. And especially on, they set these practice or these scrimmage days, so that guys have a point in the week every week to look forward to simulate a game like atmosphere every week, I guess you could say. And so if you come out there in a scrimmage and you're not performing well as a group, then what's that going to do for you moving forward going into a game one like Pitt? I think that just looking at it from his perspective, I really truly believe that's probably why he feels the way that he does. It's because he wants them to be able to perform day in and day out. And if you're even coming in there and you're performing one day elite and then the next day subpar because yesterday you feel like you made all the plays and you can take a day off, I don't think that's the kind of program that or the kind of idealism that he wants running through, the minds of our guys. And I could be wrong, but that's just the way it seems to me.
No, I'd agree with that. And to follow that up, I think one thing that I've heard from, the Pitt people and, others that have talked about Pitt's defense and how they're going to be this season and the way that they play defense is they're going to be, a very attacking defense. You'll see some quarters covered, some cover 4. Won't get too deep into. I'm going to save some of this for the Backyard Brawl preview, of course, on the podcast side. But they're going to play man coverage a lot and bring the blitz, and they're going to leave their corners on islands. Cover 0, no safety help. And so I think Neil Brown knows that, Graham Harrell knows that, and they know they're going to need these receivers to be able to make plays in that game. If they want to win the game, they're going to need big plays when they do that, and they do give cover 0. They're going to need to be able to get behind those guys and make some plays on 50-50 balls, because that's what it's going to be a lot of, I feel like, is just one-on-one, one of our receivers and one of their corners, throw it up and see who comes down with it.
I think that's what our offense is designed to do, is get guys in one-on-one situations and to get the ball into our best playmakers' hands. That's why I liked a lot of what I seen out of those highlights earlier. Is Cortez Brand going up and making that catch. That's a great catch.
Yeah.
That's a great thrown ball. It's a great catch. We need that from everybody. I think Bryce Ford Wheaton he's shown that he can do that. Sam James shown that he can do that. We've got a lot of guys that proved that they can do it. I just really think that our receivers need to show that they can do it on a very consistent basis. And that's the biggest problem in my mind.
Consistency. Yep, consistency is key. Flipping it over, talk about the other side of the ball a little bit. Haven't really shown the defense too much love. Neil Brown's comments as far as the scrimmage goes. Dante Stills, he felt got good pressure on the quarterback. I mentioned Lee Koba again, of course. Lance Dixon is really, he's really been raving about Lance Dixon. He's felt like Lance Dixon has had his best week of practice since he's been a Mountaineer, since fall camp. I've heard nothing but good things about Lance Dixon. I think he's in for a special season. The Penn State transfer, that's a guy that was a top 10 linebacker recruit in the country coming out of high school that's really, I think, just now finding his groove. So, it seems to be the same way with Lee Koba, who wasn't as highly recruited, kind of more of a hidden gem, but, did end up going to Syracuse, went to JUCO, and now is ready to really prove it, and seems like he's going to be, one of the leaders of this defense making plays. And then in the secondary, he mentioned Marcus Floyd, Charles Woods, of course, who he says, is always consistent, but he mentioned Marcus Floyd, mentioned the two transfer corners, Wesley McCormick and Rashad Ajayi. And then I mentioned the JUCO transfer, Hershey McLaurin at safety as well, said that he thought that he really, played well and tackled well. What are your thoughts on, some of the comments on the defense and expectations for the defense and, some of these transfers that Neil Brown mentioned? It's a lot of new pieces having to bring in, we mentioned Pitt bringing a lot back. That's kind of got to be a question mark for you, is having to make sure all these new pieces mesh well. But what are your thoughts on Neil Brown's comments on the defense from the first scrimmage and, your thoughts on the defense moving forward?
Not really anything too surprising, honestly. I think that it's weird for me because, with so many question marks and so many pieces that are different this year from last year's defense, there's a lot of guys that have played on this defense for a while, and each one of them that I've heard talk says that this defense flies around to the ball. They're more greedy about getting to the ball. Everybody is always excited about getting out there to play every day. I know that on our preview show, Bradley mentioned Jared Bartlett. I think that's going to be a really good guy off the edge. I think that he's got a lot of potential this year. But another guy that Neil Brown mentioned today in a press conference was Andrew Wilson Lamp. Says he's been getting a lot of reps over at that cornerback position, and I think that he has a lot of potential to see some good reps this year. And I liked what I seen out of him in the spring game. I know that was early, and you didn't really get to see a lot of stuff in terms of the offense and things, but I really liked his coverage, and I like the way that he plays. He seems like a really fast cornerback. He really can explode towards the ball. I'm weirdly not nervous about our defense this year. This is probably the first time that I've not really had any questions in my own mind about them. I'm hoping that I'm right. I'm hoping that that's the case. But Jordan Leslie, man, he's a great defense. Shadon Brown, I think he's an awesome addition to that coaching staff as well. Yeah, so
I'd agree. I think that this defense is going to be really athletic and the fastest defense we've seen in the Neil Brown era. And if you got speed on defense, you can do a lot of things. Even if you get beat on a play, you can make up for that and catch back up. Whether it be in coverage or anything else, and you can really have guys swarm to the ball with a fast defense. I'm excited to see that. Catch back up in here in chat momentarily. Tommy Ray, let's go Mountaineers, Poca, West Virginia here. What's up going on, Tommy? Good time to see you. Glad to see you. First time I think I've seen you in here. Hope you continue to come back. Subscribe if you haven't already, so you always know when we put out content, we're putting it out as much as possible, at least a few weekly, especially during the season. That's really going to crank up here, as we always love to talk WVU football and, give some things. But glad to see you. Princeton, West Virginia here for both of us down here in Princeton. So glad to see all the different parts of the state, coming in. That's the best part of it, right? Growing the West Virginia brand. Let's see here.
That's what
Bradley.
we're here to do.
Oh yeah, Bradley in the comments. Other co-host Bradley's couldn't make it on tonight, but he's here in spirit. That's actually what he says. He says, "Sorry, I couldn't make it on tonight, fellas, but I definitely didn't enjoy hearing that Dante could have gotten 3 or 4 sacks." But then he follows that up, says, "But I also enjoy hearing that Dante could have gotten 3 or 4 sacks." Yeah, it depends on whether you want to be glass half full or glass half empty, I guess, right? But yeah, I don't know. That's your offensive line. That's kind of alarming with the defense you're facing week one. What do you think, Steven?
Yeah, I want to believe that Dante is that dominant, but yeah, I don't know. That doesn't give me a lot of confidence about our offensive line and how much that I've heard about the progression of everything and how much these guys have meshed. So I would love to know what that line consisted of and where people were in that mold. You know what I mean? If they had Doug Nestor at that right tackle and Jordan White at the right guard, or if they had Doug Nestor at the guard, and I'd love to know what the pieces were when those plays were ran.
Yeah, I'd agree. That's kind of Coos Corner also chimes in. He said, "I'm with Bradley. What's up with the O line?" He says Neil Brown said they need to hold their pass blocks longer. Yeah, that's a little bit worrisome if you want to look at it from that angle. But the one thing is, James Gamitter was out, so that could have played a part as well. If you got guys playing positions that they're not necessarily used to, because I'm sure they slid Jordan White in. So who knows if they bounced Nestor out to tackle again, or who knows if Nestor was playing tackle today, because we know they've been doing that some. So if that is the case, then maybe that's not. Maybe you do need your Nestor in there at right guard and have that solid interior, because I think that's really what's going to be vital to this West Virginia offensive line is that those 3 interior I feel like are going to be solid with Gamitter, Frazier, and Nestor. So maybe having Gamitter out played a part. I don't know. Silas says in the chat, Dante just that elite. Yeah, I do agree with that though. I think Dante's going to have a big season. So you never know for sure. Britt, oh dang, I didn't know I could. Oh, okay. Oh, that's dope. How long we've been doing
Learning
these
stuff
lives,
live on the Country Roads webcast.
I didn't know I could click it and pull up the comment. Okay, that's pretty dope. All right, so learn something new every day, guys. Right, so I will continue to get better as we go. Just stick with us. We'll get there eventually.
42 minutes into the show and we're learning.
Brent Jones, good to see you in here. Brent, always like seeing you, and you always chime in. I appreciate you always tuning into these live streams and hopping in the chat. We love when people hop in the chat with questions. He says, I'm wondering if JT had good chemistry with the receivers yet. Not having him in the spring could possibly come back and bite us in the ass early in the season. Oh, I don't want to get bit in the ass. But I'll tell you what, I don't know how big of a part it plays, but I have heard a lot of the coaches, some of the players talk about having the OTAs this season, first time college can have them like the NFL has, how that has really helped with the chemistry. And even in the first day of fall camp, they said it didn't really look like the first day of fall camp. The guys looked a little bit more polished and stuff. So hopefully maybe having those OTAs, he was able to develop some of that chemistry more so than if he had missed the spring in a past season. I think, Steven, what do you think there? Any thoughts on the chemistry between JT Daniels and the receivers?
I think anytime you get a new quarterback, you're going to have a little bit of, hit or miss there. But I don't know. I don't think that when you're coming into an offense that you already know, the chemistry with the receivers is something you can build. I don't want to say in a very short time frame because it does take a while. I think with the amount of time JT's been there, I don't want to say that they have the best chemistry, but I don't think it's going to be to the point to where it's going to hurt them long term. I think maybe game one it might hurt us a little bit. I think down the line it won't be that big of an issue. With the amount of experience that JT Daniels has and the amount of experience in our receiving core, I don't think it should be an issue.
Yeah, I'd agree. It shouldn't be. I think that they've had enough time, and I think JT Daniels is familiar with the offense though, so that should help. And getting the time in with the receivers, I think is easier than learning a new playbook. And he didn't at least have to do that. Just new terminology, really. Kuz's corner. I think the speed on defense may also help lead to more turnovers. Yeah, that's a great point. One thing, as good as West Virginia's defense has been in the Neil Brown era, hasn't been, that great at forcing turnovers, really. So I think that could be something that happens this year with more speed. And I think Charles Woods is in for a few interceptions this season.
Yeah, I think Charles Woods is in for a a huge season this year. I would have to agree with that.
Yep, going to play himself into a draft pick. Kuz also says if our O-line doesn't play well, we will get destroyed on September 1st. It'll be like the bowl game. Yeah, that's what I'm worried about the closer I get. That's kind of one of the things Steve and I was talking about as we get closer, the more I learn about Pitt, the more nervous I'm getting and stuff. That's one of the things that worries me is last year when West Virginia played teams that had defensive lines and front sevens like this, it was really a struggle for the offense. So you're going to really learn how improved this offensive line is right away, how improved the pass blocking is, if Graham Harrell's offense is going to make it look different in those situations. And, if JT Daniels being able to get the ball out quicker and make his reads quicker is going to make a difference because last year when West Virginia faced defenses like this, Oklahoma State and the bowl game, like Kuz mentioned, against Minnesota come to mind. Does that make you worry a little bit more, Steven?
Oh, absolutely. It does make me worry. I mean, anytime you play a team that has, potential to be as good as a unit as their defensive line is, and as weak of a unit as our offensive line has been, you can't help but be nervous. But I also believe that, bringing in Graham Harrell and, Matt Moore was like Bradley said in the comments here, Matt Moore was a little bit of a, going out on a limb, I believe. But bringing in Graham Harrell is truly a grand slam pick for our offense in all facets. I think that, as bad as we were at that last year, and that was what we struggled against, I think that's a point of emphasis because, there's so many games last year that West Virginia had potential to win, and it was right on that line. There were, how many close games did we play in last year? So I know that has to be, as big of a point of emphasis in this offseason as running the ball well against the upper teams in our conference. And I know that Neil Brown's a stat guy, so I know that he's looking at that when he has to be.
Yeah, I definitely think that he is, for sure. Bradley, like you said, talking about the O-line here in the comments, if our O-line doesn't play well, head coach Neil Brown may have just signed his ticket out of WVU, took a massive risk sticking his neck out for Coach Moore. I think that Neil Brown's safe for another year personally, unless the wheels absolutely fall out and we start like 1-5, or if we end up with 3, 4, 5 wins, something like that. I think he's safe for another year personally. But if the offensive line doesn't play well, I don't think Matt Moore is safe. And what's crazy to me about the situation with West Virginia's offensive line is I know, first of all, when Matt Moore got here, the pieces were not there at all. I'd say this year is probably the first year that you can actually say the pieces are there for him to possibly have success. Last year, the pieces were there, but some of them were inexperienced, young. I think this year is the first time. So this is the year to really judge Matt Moore wholeheartedly, I feel like. But definitely Matt Moore, the offensive line has struggled. So you definitely got to point the finger somewhere. And, he could, end up seeing the door if it does struggle this year. But what's crazy to me about that, Stephen, is I remember when Neil Brown was hired and I was listening to all the podcasts talking about us hiring him. And, I could never tell you which one it was because I listened to so many different people talk about it. But it was I think it was West Virginia podcast that had someone on from Troy. I want to say it was the Troy radio guy or somebody that was on the Troy staff or something. But the one thing they talked about was, getting that they liked that Neil Brown was bringing some of his staff, and he mentioned the ones that stuck out. And the one that he talked about a lot was Matt Moore. And the thing that he said about Matt Moore is he said, I feel like Matt Moore is a top 10 offensive line coach in the country. And so I was super excited. I was like, oh, we're going to get this guy on our offensive line. It's going to be really good. So I've been a little bit disappointed with the offensive line. I know the pieces haven't been there, but what are your thoughts on Neil Brown's, future being tied to, him sticking out his neck for Matt Moore like Bradley talked about here and Matt Moore in general?
Well, I don't necessarily believe, like you mentioned, I don't think that Neil Brown's gone this season unless something catastrophic, happens. And if we have a season like last year or worse, then he's obviously, there's going to be some things that need to be discussed and talk about a potential buyout. But that buyout right now, I don't think West Virginia is, in even near a position to try to be able to afford that if they even go with 7-8 wins. Of course, it depends on what it looks like when they do that, but I think that Neil Brown he's on the hot seat, but with the buyout that West Virginia has to pay if they get rid of Neil Brown, I just don't see that happening this year. Maybe next year, but not this year. But next year, I don't know. I could get into a lot of things that I think West Virginia's going to do this year compared to next year. But we'll save that for another episode. You're muted, buddy. Cruz, you're muted, buddy.
Oh, sorry about that. Forgot to unmute myself. But I was about to say, I think a lot hinges on this year, what the future of West Virginia football and what happens in the future. And I think, Coos, I think, made a video at one point talking about this could be, one of the most important seasons in West Virginia football history. And I tend to agree with that when you think about it, really wouldn't look at it with a fine-tooth comb. But Big Ounce here in the chat, I really thought Neil Brown was smart enough to make promises and start to say things that aren't true, but I'm starting to wonder. And then I think he goes on to elaborate here. He says, well, maybe not a promise specifically, but Neil Brown said multiple times that this line was in a much better place this time than they were last year. He said they look stronger and better than last year. But then Stills eats them alive like a McDonald's meal. Well, Big Ounce, appreciate you chiming in, and that's a great question. I don't know. Neil Brown, as far as saying things that aren't true, I don't really think I have too many examples of where he's done so. The one thing that I think people could probably point out would be the Jarrett Dagey thing and talking about his improvements last offseason. But like I said, he may have just been really good in practice. But as far as the offensive line goes, I think they really are improved, Big Ounce, and I think you're going to see that. Week one, it's really tough, probably one of the best defensive lines in the country, as we said, against Pitt. So, they may not look as that much improved in that first game to you, but I think as the season goes on, you'll really see, because I think these guys are all going to be back together again. And you have some really studs. Zach Frazier's a stud. Wyatt Milam's a stud. All-American type potential guys. Doug Nestor's really great. James Committer's really great. And then whoever at the tackle, Brandon Yates or Hubbard, I think has potential as well. So I think this offense really is improved. Could speak to Dante Stills and how great he is. But also, James Committer was out. So, there was some things they were doing differently on the offensive line as well. I don't think that we can really say that's untrue that Neil Brown has said just yet. We got to wait till the season. But if the season comes around and they're not improved, I'd agree with you on that one, Big Ounce. What do you think, Steven?
Yeah, I'd have to agree. I have to wait until I see, that's part of the trouble of not having any video from the scrimmage today. I wish there was, at least something from the scrimmage, at least a little bit more than some of the highlight clips that we've gotten, and more than, just from what we hear in press conferences. But until I see them line up and see them play on week one, I can't really make a fair assessment of what this offensive line is compared to what last year's was.
Right. Yeah. I mean, all we can go off is what we think, how we think the players are going to develop, and, also what the coaches have said. So, it's just too early to call that one, Big Ounce, I think, but could go either way for sure. Silas says Stills might just get 2 to 3 sacks on every O-line he faces. If he does that, we're going to have a very special season for sure.
Oh, absolutely. I think if any defensive line, anybody on the defensive line on any team has that, they're going to have a great season. That team's going undefeated.
Yeah. Well, if he gets 2 or 3 each game, he would definitely get the season record. I feel like Silas. I can't remember what it is right off, but I know Bruce Irvin had 12 or 13, and he was tied for the lead in the country. And I don't think that was the most in school history. I think somebody had somewhere in the 15 to 19 range. I feel like, but I don't know for 100% what it is, but I know that Stills is going for some records this year. I think he's 3rd in TFLs. Could possibly get up there and stuff with some career records. So who knows? Big Ounce, maybe you guys are right, not trying to sound disrespectful. I just really want this team to be better, LOL. No. We didn't think you're disrespectful at all, Big Ounce. We appreciate the comment and stuff, and it very well could be true, definitely not disrespectful at all. We really want this team to be better too, and we're kind of hoping it is. We're cautiously optimistic this offseason, but we definitely hope so too.
If anybody understands frustration on coach comments and, them making comments that we don't really come to fruition in the future, I think we understand that. Because like I mentioned earlier, all of off season last year, we thought the West Virginians going to come out and blow the tires off of Maryland. So,
yeah, that's true. I didn't think it was going to be. I thought I felt a lot more confident about that one than I do about this one this season, to be honest with you. So, if West Virginia comes out and win this one, it's just kind of like, what do I know, I guess. Right.
Yeah. Just kind of going with the flow at this
Big
point.
ounce. Yeah, that's all you can do. He says, and Stills is a beast. I think the extra time he's gotten in college will help turn him into an NFL starter one day. Yeah, I think Dante Stills has really good NFL potential. I mean, I think that he could definitely get drafted. What do you think, Steven?
Oh, for sure. I think this isn't knocking Darius at all, but I think that, Darius hasn't had that much luck in the league, but I think Dante is going to make a name for himself in the league very, very quickly.
Yep, I'd agree with that. Brent Jones chiming in with another good question, as he always does. You all think we try to run more or pass more against Pitt? Steven, I don't know. I kind of got to think for a second, so I'll let you take this one first if you got an answer right off.
My initial just gut reaction to that, I would say that we pass more, just given their defensive line and how good that is. I would, they've talked all season or all off season about how well they want to run the ball against some of the upper teams in our league. But I don't think that you see them try to shove it down Pitt's throat week one because it's just too risky. So I think that might be a lot of the reason also that Neil Brown was, a little bit more stressed than usual today in his press conference.
Yeah. Personally, I think we'll probably see more passes, but I think that some of those passes are going to essentially be extensions of the run game, because I think where Pitt's defensive line is so stout and the front seven is so stout, they're going to have to get creative with ways that they try and, quote unquote, run the ball, whether it be swing passes to running backs, tunnel screens, things like that, that little toss play, jet sweeps to receivers. I think we'll see things like that, as extensions of the running game. And then also, maybe the way that they run the ball is they do it creatively, because I don't think you just want to slam it up inside. So maybe we see a little bit more wide zone than we've seen from West Virginia traditionally, a little bit more outside zone or something like that. But I definitely think we'll probably pass it a little bit more, because I think, we'll be using the screen game, quick drop-offs to the running back and things like that.
Yeah, absolutely agree. I think the West Virginia's going to have to figure out different ways to attack in week one, which I think Graham Harrell's very good at doing. So I'm kind of excited about that aspect of it.
Yeah, that's what I'm excited to see what our plan is, because I think we're going to see some different things that we haven't seen. Obviously, it's going to be technically a different offense. Some of the schemes are kind of similar, I think, to what we were running as far as route tree and things like that in the passing game. But I think the way that they dress things up is going to be interesting, in some of the packages that we use. And how we employ a guy like C.J. Donaldson is going to be interesting if he gets on the field week one against Pitt. I don't know how long in the season it's going to take him to get things going, but how we employ some of these different players that we have and different young guys and newcomers, and that goes to the JUCO receivers as well, Jeremiah and Cortez Bram, how they choose to use those guys. It's going to be interesting in that first game. But before we get too much further into this thing, we'll get ready to close it out before too much longer, unless you guys come in with some more questions in the chat. We'll catch up with those as much as we have to. But I did want to get your thoughts on one other aspect. We talked about the offense a little bit, talked about the defense a little bit. Special teams, I think it was a big area of emphasis in this scrimmage. Neil Brown mentioned they used this as a big time to kind of analyze some of their younger guys, their newcomers, whether it be the freshmen or the transfers that have come in. They've got a lot of guys. They feel like one thing we've talked about with this team this offseason they've done is try to get faster. So he feels like they've got a lot of speed, a lot of athleticism, which means that a lot of guys that can play special teams. So I think they're kind of trying to narrow that down. We're doing some drills with that. Along with that, I think that West Virginia has taken an emphasis this offseason to improve special teams as well as the offenses, with bringing in Parker Grotehouse as the kickoff specialist from Florida State. The transfer from Stony Brook, we put a video out on about recently, Anthony Del Negro, and then the punter Oliver Straw from Australia as well. Special teams definitely being an emphasis this offseason, Stephen. What are your thoughts about that and how that could factor into West Virginia's 2022 and the special teams, things that Neil Brown touched on in the scrimmage today?
I think this is going to be a very important part of the backyard brawl this year. I think with the addition of Anthony Del Negro, I'm excited to see what we can do against on defense on special teams, I guess you could say. What was it? He had 4 block field goals.
He had 3. I don't know how
3.
many he ended up with at the end of the season. He had 3 in the first 4 games. I know that last
Right.
season at Stony Brook, but I don't know how many he ended up with, but I think several.
Yeah, that alone gets me excited about the special teams. Casey Legg, I think, is he speaks for himself. He's got a very fitting last name, and then Oliver Straw, I keep hearing good things about his leg too. He's a pretty good punter.
Yeah, and Colton McGee right there battling for him too, with him too at punter though. So I think you got 2 guys with good potential there, and both kind of young. So I like that. But special teams wise, to me, I think Neil Brown stepping away from the offense has allowed him to focus more on that, because I think looking back 2020 and even 2019 a little bit, special teams was used as more of a weapon for us. And last year was kind of more of a mixed bag, wasn't as consistent. And I think Neil Brown knows, our defense has been solid. And so if he can improve special teams, use that as a hidden weapon to help him win games, and the offense, it's going to result in more wins on the field, because those are kind of the 2 areas that need improved. And you can definitely see they've made a concerted effort this offseason to improve those areas, special teams and the offense. So that's, excites you for the season, and hopefully it can lead to more wins. Slide or Die chimes in. Single season sacks, Canute Curtis 17 in 96. Bruce Irvin did have 14 in 2010. I thought it was 13 or 14. So right on that. I had a feeling it was Canute Curtis, but I didn't want to misspeak. But I said 15 to 19 range. So, right in the middle there, Canute Curtis with 17. So what do you think? You think Dante can make a run at either one of those numbers this year?
Well, he definitely has a chance. He definitely has a chance to push for those numbers. I don't know about 17. 17 is that's a special number, man. That's a lot of sacks. That's
Canute
a great
was a special guy.
That was a great player right there. Yeah. I don't know. He definitely 14 is attainable. It's definitely pushing the bar a little bit, but with the way that our defensive line is looking and is supposed to look this year, then I don't think that that's out of reach. I don't. I think 10 to 12 is definitely possible.
I mean, if he gets to double digits, I'd be happy, because I think, that means we're going to be sacking the quarterback a lot, because if Dante gets, to double digits, I feel like we may have 20, 30 sacks as a team, because you got other guys that I think are going to be making plays in there as well. So could be big. Let's see. There's a comment here. It's Big Ounce. I think this year could be 7-5 to 8-4. I hope for better, but Neil Brown has to win 7 games if he doesn't want to coach for his job every game next season. Yeah, that's kind of what we were talking about earlier. I don't know if it's a certain number of wins. I feel like he's safe, for the next season, but I think definitely, most Mountaineer fans will probably be disappointed with anything less than 7 this season. But to hear as far as what we think West Virginia will win, as far as what number of games, what we think the record will be, Big Ounce. You can find that out on Monday, August 15th. Our 2022 season prediction roundtable is releasing. Mine, Steven, our other coach, Bradley, special guest from the CRW Hoops side, Ryder, came on as well. And then Cooz's Corner, Cooz, who's in the chat here, or was in the chat, I guess he's still around, came in as well. And we all gave our record predictions for West Virginia, including what games we think they'll win, what games we think they'll lose. They went through the schedule there. So definitely be on the lookout for that from us on Monday. Big Ounce, but I think 7 wins is definitely vital for the future for Neil Brown.
No, I think 7 wins is the absolute floor that you have for next season if you're Neil Brown.
Yep, I agree. WV Fan 23, I think Neil Brown said in the spring or one of the first practices this fall camp, they want to play more man coverage so we can blitz more this year. Do you think we'll be able to blitz more? I do. Hopefully, depending on how that man coverage holds up. But I definitely think, he even mentioned that again today, that they, played more man today to try it out, first time being in the stadium, first scrimmage. And I think that they're trying to do that for sure. I think that that's, one of the things we talk about, them making a concerted effort to reshape the roster this offseason. A lot of people wanted to panic about the transfers, but a lot of those I think were by choice, for lack of a better term, because they wanted to remold the defense to get faster and longer. So they may move specifically to do that, specifically in the secondary. And so they can play more man. So I do think we will see more blitzes because we will see more man coverage. in the secondary, depending on how successful that is. Stephen, would you agree?
I absolutely do agree. I think that, like you mentioned, they made pieces in the second. They've interchanged pieces in the secondary to where it's easier for us to play man coverage. Last year, I think that was definitely, a very obvious weakness on our defensive side of the ball. At a lot of times in a lot of games was our man coverage. And so if you make that better, then I definitely think we'll be able to blitz a lot more this year. And that's why I think that Dante is going to have such a big year, is because, if you can only double him so much if you got 2 or 3 other guys in your face all night. So
yeah.
And with the way that Taj Austin and Jared Bartlett the way those guys have been talked about all camp long, then this defense is going to be exciting one to watch. Comparatively to the last couple seasons, I think they're going to be very, very exciting team to watch.
This is going to be one of the deepest West Virginia defensive lines we've seen in quite some time, I feel like. So definitely think that the ability to blitz more will be there as long as the secondary holds up. Brenton Jones, I'm feeling the Pitt game could be lower scoring. What do you guys think? I don't know for sure. I'd have to look more into the numbers to see what I think, but I do think that if the game is more lower scoring, I hate to say it, but I think that would favor Pitt more. I think that this year they bring back Signetti. They're going more, back to the pro style, more run heavy. They want to play more complementary football. They know they're going to have a really good defense. So I think they're going to really try to run the ball. They got a really good running back, Abanaconda or something. I'm probably pronouncing it wrong, but something like that. He's really good. They're going to feed him. They have a couple other good running backs as well. So I think if it's lower scoring, that's advantage Pitt. They probably want it to be more of a defensive slugfest. But it very well could be because West Virginia's going to have a good defense as well. But I think if West Virginia's offense is improved like we hope it is, I hope it's not too low scoring because like we said earlier, Pitt's going to play man coverage, put their guys on islands. And West Virginia's offense can make plays, with the receivers and, on deep balls. I think West Virginia could score some against Pitt potentially on some, big plays, deep passing plays. So hopefully it's not lower scoring because I think that West Virginia's going to need to score a little bit if they want it to be their type of game and not play right into Pitt's hands. But what are your thoughts, Stephen, on the game being lower scoring?
Yeah, I think I don't know about that. I think it's going to be in the 30s somewhere. I think that's a realistic score. Excuse me, to shoot for, especially in the first week of the season. I think if this game was played in week 3, I would probably shoot for the 40s, maybe even low 50s. It'd be a pretty high scoring game.
Yeah, it's that first week you're kind of figuring out what your opponent's doing. You got that first quarter or so is kind of an adjustment period from there. So, and then not to mention, you got some transfers in this game, going to be knocking off some rust at quarterback probably and other newcomers. So, I think if it's in the 30s, I like West Virginia to win. If it's below, it's going to be a little bit tougher for the Mountaineers. Maybe that's just my thoughts initially right now. 3 weeks away, we'll see how that changes. Michael Walker in the comments, I appreciate you tuning in. Don't think I've seen you in here before, but appreciate you coming in, and you're always welcome, and I appreciate you chiming in the chat, of course, as well. Hit the like button, you guys, if you haven't already. That's going to help this video's performance and help future videos performances here on the channel. It's going to be really good for us, this upcoming season as well. So appreciate you guys doing that have tuned in. Michael Walker, when given assurances of anonymity, ACC football coaches pretty much agree that they expect Pitt to fall back to the middle of the pack this season. I don't know. That's kind of surprising to me. I guess, they did lose some big pieces, so maybe that's factoring into that, losing Kenny Pickett and losing Jordan Addison. But I don't know. I think they've got a really good defense. I guess to me it falls on how that offense ends up playing out, especially with the new coordinator and Signetti. And, probably a little bit more of a focus on the run. But what are your thoughts about that, Stephen? That's kind of surprising to me.
A little bit surprising, given the fact that their defensive line, I've heard so much about how deep that they are. And I know that it's only one unit on the football team, and there's a little bit, some question marks on the offensive side of the ball. But when you have an ACC championship team and then, you return a whole unit like that, and then you have so many pieces on your defensive side of the ball as a whole that are supposed to make an impact, it is a little bit surprising. I hope that they're right.
Yeah, hopefully.
Well, against us anyway.
Hopefully.
I hope that I hate to say it, but it's kind of bad if we beat a team and then they end up not being so good. So
yeah, I mean, as long as we win it, I really don't care either way, but it would look better for us in the long run, I guess, if they kept winning,
That's true.
besides losing to us. But long as we get the W, I guess that's all that matters. Big Ounce, fun fact, my dad was best friends with Raleigh Collins' dad. I think he could be a great player for the future. That's being slept on. Yeah, I loved. I think Raleigh Collins was a hidden gem in this past recruiting class. Going to play a linebacker for Mountaineers. I think he might be a bandit. I'm not 100% sure. I need to check the roster for that, but I feel like he was listed as a bandit, and I really like his potential there. If so, but I like him as a wheel too. If he wants to play there, I think he's a guy that could really help down in the future for West Virginia for sure. That being said, Stephen, anything else you wanted to add as far as the first scrimmage or anything that's happened within these first couple of weeks of fall camp? Any final thoughts, before we get ready to wrap up this live stream edition of the Country Roads webcast?
Nothing really. I do want to say that I hope that that whatever the decision is, actually, there is one thing that I did want to talk about in terms of the quarterback play. Some of the things that I've seen out of camp. Obviously JT is going to be JT, and we're looking for what Nico's been doing with his highlights and the spin that he's putting on the ball. But one player that I've really liked watching some of their highlights is Garrett Green. That man has some wheels on him. I think if he would have played in another era of West Virginia football, he would have been a truly, truly special player.
Oh, man, put him in that Rich Rod zone read offense.
Right, yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking. And that's not to say I wouldn't have taken Pat White out of that offense. I'm just saying, like, if in some fantasy fairy tale world
Alternate
you
universe.
you had Pat White, and then you had, the very next one would have been Garrett Green, and then you could have went to Gino. I mean, that would have been just a dream scenario. But yeah, man, very impressed with the way the way that Garrett Green has been not only running the ball, but throwing the ball too. I've seen some pretty great passes from him this fall, or this summer rather. But other than that, I really truly hope that at least by this coming Thursday that we can pick a quarterback. I think that it's important for the morale of the entire offense, really, to pick a quarterback and have a guy that those guys can really, truly like, this is our guy. This is who we're going to be. This is who we're going with week one. And I know that everybody pretty much knows who it's going to be, but I think the team, more than the fan base, needs to know now, so that way they can mentally prepare for that in a way, if that makes sense. I don't want it to sound like it's a do or die situation.
I get where you're coming from. No, I get where you're coming from, and I tend to agree with you there as well. Let's see. One good thing here from WVU fan 23. Definitely point this out before we close out, and kind of wants to. What I wanted to close out with anyways and talk about West Virginia's practice schedule a little bit. But he says, for the people interested, Fan Day is Saturday in Morgantown. Yes, great point, WV Fan 23. Thanks for pointing that out. Saturday in Morgantown, 9 a.m. Fan Day up at the stadium. Go up there. They'll have autograph signing, have the players available for autograph signs. Following that, they're going to practice in the stadium, and fans can stay and watch that. It's going to be an open practice, or at least a portion of it is at least. So that's good. Nothing tomorrow, no on-field activities. So the next practice will be that Fan Day practice. And then after the Fan Day practice, I believe that's when the players are going to be made available for interviews. And then I think there's a closed practice on Sunday. So that's kind of going to wrap up week 2 of fall camp. So today, kind of the unofficial, I guess, wrap up of week 2 of fall camp, because you get the scrimmage, and then you get a couple more practices Saturday and Sunday. But scrimmage, the big piece of news. But that being said, as fall camp progresses, keep a lookout here on the Country Roads webcast. As you can see on the screen, there are social media handles on Twitter at WVU Country Roads, Facebook and Instagram, just Country Roads webcast, all one word. Stay tuned there for updates. We will have another live stream or two, I'm sure, before the season starts. Also, of course, as I said, releasing Monday, Season 5, Episode 129 of the CRW podcast, and it is our season prediction roundtable 2022 edition with special guest Coos's Corner. That's releasing Monday at 8 a.m. So be on the lookout for that. You can watch that here on YouTube, on Facebook, and on Twitch. Of course, we only have our live streams there, but if you're watching on Twitch and you do want to hear that, check it out on a podcast platform. Listen to it. We're on Apple Podcasts, Anchor, Spotify, you name it. Just follow us there, Country Roads webcast. Hit the like button if you're watching us on YouTube. remind you that one more time, and subscribe if you haven't already. And if you are subscribed, that notification bell is a great way to be notified when we go live or drop any content here on YouTube, some exclusive stuff here for the off season. Silas says, enjoyed the show. Appreciate that, Silas. We enjoy doing these and enjoy you guys that choose to chime in. Brent Jones as well. Good stuff, guys. Brent Jones, always loyal here, coming back, and we appreciate you continuing to do so as we continue to try and grow this Country Roads webcast community. And you guys are now officially a part of it. And welcome back anytime for the podcast throughout the season. We'll have game previews. We'll be live streaming our reaction shows and then have other videos up in between. So a lot of content coming from the Country Roads webcast. Any final thoughts, Stephen?
Nope. I'm excited for I like the way that they got these set up, having a scrimmage every Thursday. I think that this is going to be, for not having games each week, it's something that I can actually look forward to, like a game scenario and something to talk about. So it's one thing I really like about having those every Thursday.
Exactly. I was looking forward to this one because I knew I was like, another live stream, because I just enjoyed doing this, getting in the chat and talking to the fans, the other Mountaineer fans as well, because that's us ourselves. By Mountaineer fans for Mountaineer fans. That's what we like to say as far as here at the Country Roads webcast. So super excited, and we'll do it again soon. That being said, for Stephen, as always, I'm Jordan Cruz, and until next time, let's go.